It is amazing to see so far over 100 people here, including so many people who have either been my madrachim, my merakzim, my inspirations, my chanichim, staff for me as the director of TY, who have also become my teachers. And I'm a little overwhelmed, a little verklempt at this moment to be all together. When I was in Alamim, Mel was my Merakez and youngest Alamim and Yoya, Chug Yoya in 1978. And, I sat like many other people here in that, what we call the Machon Moadon. For younger people, we call it the MIB. Took my notes on Jewish history, slept a lot during some of those sichot. And when I finally was a Merakez 10 years later, so 8 years later, I had to sit with Mel once again in the Chorsha for an entire day to go over Jewish history, because I hadn't really learned that much when I was younger, or remembered very much. That was, those were important days. They led me, my days as Merakez led me to so many other things, and now back to being the director of TY for the last 14 years. The truth is, we want to be together. As Judeans, as Jews, as Zionists, we want to be together. Even though we're currently on Zoom, we want to physically be together. And we have so many places that we've been together, whether it's in Wimberley, Texas, at CYJ Texas, or Wapaka, Wisconsin at CYJ Midwest, or Ortonville, Michigan for CYJ Michigan, in Burbank at Sprout Lake, or now in Brooklyn and Westchester at our day camps, in Hendersonville, North Carolina, and today Camp Judea won the t-shirt contest at Camp Judea, at Beit Riklis and at Beit RL in Yerushalayim. And I don't know why we don't have Beit Riklis t-shirts. We should really get them. At Beit Hillel in Tel Aviv, at Kibbutz Keturah, at the Metropolitan Hotel in Asbury Park, Zichron Livracha. If you know, you know when I'm talking about the Metropolitan Hotel. At Hadassah House at 50 West 58th Street, sleeping there with hundreds of people the night before the Solidarity Sunday March for Russian Jewry. These last 10 years at 575 8th Avenue, at 413 Main Street in Metuchen, New Jersey, and every other regional Young Judea office around the country where we slept on floors when we were on the Mosque route. And yeah, and of course at Camp Tel Yehudah in Barryville and Lumberland, New York, where Mel lived and taught for so many decades. For our Young Judea generations, it's been the combination of people and place that has been central to our experiences. And I would say it's the combination of people and place that's created the very sacredness and holiness of our Young Judea experiences. And now we're on Zoom, and yet I am sure we would much rather be at any or all of the places I just listed above. And I'm counting down the days to be back at TY and out of this basement, because we need to be together, and it also does matter where we are together. On Friday, I was having a conversation with somebody some of you know, Maria Zacharias, who was a Young Judean in the 70s and is now the architect we're working with as we look to the future of Camp Tel Yehudah. We were having a discussion about painting the Aleph Chadarochel, which of course has been brown since 1971 when it was built and made no sense with the rest of the layout of Aleph. And we're finally getting it, I don't think it's been painted since 1971, and we're finally getting around to painting this building and discussing, is it the roof? Should it be blue? Should it be white? Should it match the Beit Am? It matters. Mario said it'll pop. Everybody will love it if they see the white siding and the blue roof. Yet it would also go against the way we think of the Chadarochel and Aleph. I think we're going to go for it. I think we're going to make it white and blue now. But I was thinking about this in the context of yesterday's Parsha. We were reading Parshat Pekudei, which is the end of Exodus and the completion of the Mishkan. And, take a look at it. It's very ornate. There's all sorts of descriptions of gold and silver and dolphin skins that are going to make the inside of the Mishkan just beautiful, beautiful outfits for the priests. And all of it felt not Young Judeanish. All of this incredible ornateness, all this gold and silver. And And so I always struggled with this whole section of the Torah. What's all this emphasis on silver and gold and dolphin skins? Is this really how we create holiness? Is this how God comes to rest in a certain place? Do we need all of this? Where did this stuff come from anyway? Was it reparations from the Egyptians? At what point does our Hidur mitzvah become more about the Hidur and less about the mitzvah? And I think these questions, and by the way, how can we talk about any of this in the light of all the suffering that is always going on, and certainly in the suffering we're watching on our TV sets every single minute of the day right now? I think growing up in young Judea, at least in the 1970s, our Zionism was much more about, as much about a rejection of American Jewish life and all of those institutions, our big synagogues and fancy JCCs, huge weddings and B'nai Mitzvah parties. And all of that felt, I think, to many of us like idolatry. And our view of Israel at the time, and maybe still now, was about a place that was different, that wasn't filled with all of that ornateness, all of that emphasis on the stuff, but much more on the place and the people. But the truth is, the places do matter, and what we do with those places matter. I just want to share one picture. Will be familiar to many of you. This is a place. It's the Beit Am in Olive in Camp Tel Yehudah. And I thought about, it's not ornate, and yet it's not so different than what we read about in the Mishkan yesterday. We read about in the Parsha about the Mishkan, where Bitzalel, the chief architect, brought all of these different artists to come together collectively to create the space in which would become holy. These are the collection of all of us young Judea artists over many generations who have come to this one space to endow this place with holiness. The Mishkan was portable, but it wasn't meant to be permanent. We're headed somewhere to build a permanent home for ourselves. Zoom is not meant to be permanent. It's just a stop along the way till we get there. So before we break out, and I turn things over to Dina, I'd say, B'Shana Haba in Tel Aviv, in Jerusalem, in Wapaka, Hendersonville, Wimberley, Burbank, Brooklyn, Westchester, and all of our Judean homes wherever they are. And I will turn things over to Adina. It is great to see all of you.
Boker Tov, or Erev Tov to all. Thank you, David. That was a beautiful and fitting tribute to Mel, and what a wonderful way to open our second Mel Reisfield Yom Iyyun. May his memory continue to be a blessing to all that remember him and were impacted by him throughout his lifetime. I also wish to welcome Sharon, Gil, and Shai Reisfield a year after the passing of their father. We pray that our learning today will further elevate his neshama as we come together as a Judean community to continue his legacy and ours as Chovavei Torah, lovers of Torah and learning. We also keep in mind our brothers and sisters in Ukraine and pray for a speedy and peaceful end to this war. Today, we will learn with master educators from across our community on a diverse array of topics in 2 breakout sessions. We will then return to this Zoom room, our Beit Am, for a panel conversation led by Noah Ephron to wrestle with the question, what does it mean to be a Zionist youth movement in 2022? And finally, the panel discussion will conclude with decade reunions, where you will be invited to join your decade of Judeans in breakout rooms to reconnect with old friends and to make new ones. So let's get started with some learning.